Are Washington, D.C. home prices absolutely collapsing because Doge is going in, firing any worker they can get their hands on. Here on this chart, you can see an 8.6% decline in real estate prices in Washington, D.C. since, well, I mean, it is a year-over-year comparison, but if you look at what the Kobeissi letter says, they say since Doge began its layoffs. Take a look at this. Folks, as a real estate broker and, well, the CEO of a real estate company, what kind of insights can we actually glean from the data to suggest, is this because of Doge? Are real estate values collapsing in the DC area because of the Department of Governmental Efficiency going in, potentially laying off as many workers as they get their hands on, especially with Donald Trump's resignation offer, which 75,000 federal workers have reportedly, according to the Wall Street Journal, accepted. Remember, that resignation offer allows you to, quote, resign from your federal job, where you typically have federal worker protections that don't allow you to get fired once you're past your probationary period. So instead, Donald Trump offered those workers the opportunity to resign, get pay between now through September for doing no work. And meanwhile, are Washington, D.C. home prices absolutely collapsing because Doge is going in, firing Medicaid? Well, I know of scientists who got fired, and I work on Medicaid. Just wanted to point out, when you get things wrong like you requested. Of course, there's a big discussion and commentary in here about, oh, well, you know, what organizations were you supporting, or you don't fit into Elon's agenda, and blah, 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 blah. All those debates we don't really have to get involved in right now. What we need to talk about is, are these layoffs in D.C. leading to a real estate collapse? Well, one thing we know with certainty is that when people lose their jobs and they need to relocate because they're priced out of an area, yes, the likelihood is that you're going to have to move. However, we're also coming off of the backs of what I like to refer to as the COVID bubble. This is where we had a lot of people relocate from places like California to Texas or Florida. We've actually seen a decline in real estate values in a lot of areas of the country as part of a downward trend, and parts of the country have actually been on an upward trend since COVID. In fact, I've been calling this the COVID reversal, quite frankly, since COVID. If you know, and you've been following me for years, you know that when I started my company, my real estate company, in 2022, we said we're going to buy in the opposite of the COVID reversal markets. So when we started this company, everybody was still flocking to Austin, Texas, and Florida under this impression that, you know, everybody's going there, it's easy to build there. But we know in real estate that when you overbuild in an area and you don't have this continued catalyst to bring people into an area, you end up with an oversupply after accelerated new construction and the prices come down. And that's actually exactly what's happened in many parts of the country. So we preferred to invest in the areas people were, quote unquote, fleeing from, like California. And what's fascinating is it's worth comparing the DC market and what's going on with, quote unquote, Doge. Is Doge leading to this real estate price collapse? And what's actually been happening with a broader trend, because this is going to give us an understanding of what's actually happening in the real estate market. So watch this. First of all, this is the Doge chart, where essentially the thesis is, okay, Doge took over and prices started declining since Doge took over. What you really have to know is when you're looking at a real estate chart for sort of pricing fluctuates a lot on a month-over-month basis. And that's because real estate is so diverse. Real estate trades on a median basis. That is, when we look at these charts, we use a median basis, not an average basis. But that median shifts a lot. And the reason it shifts a lot is because you have a different mix of properties. You have condos, co-ops, townhomes, single families, and they trade all over the spectrum. And when you only have about 400 to 500 homes trading in a single month, you don't actually have that much data. So the midpoint, which is what the median measures, not the average, right? That midpoint can actually fluctuate a lot based on if you have, 50 more high-end home sales and for some reason you didn't have a lot of condo sales, that median can move up and down a lot. So I actually think looking at some of the year-over-year data to look at those month comparisons year-over-year is a mistake. You need something a lot smoother than that to really understand what a longer-term trend is. And this is why I bring up the COVID reversal. Now, it's interesting for DC. It's a little harder to piece in there, but let's look at some of the longer term trends to really see what's going on, and then we'll know what's going on with real estate. All right, here we go. So, on this chart, which is the same one that Kabisi let her compare to, what we can actually do is, rather than use these fluctuations, which don't really tell us much about what's going on in the market, we'd actually zoom out, not just to the 3-year, but we could zoom out to the 5-year. And if you look at the 5-year and sort of draw a little range around it, you can see we've been bouncing around all over the place. The lower end of the range we have hit once at the beginning of 2020, once now, and once in 2023. And the upper end of the range, we've hit a few times. We hit at the end of 2021, a lot of euphoria there, end of 2022, and then recently in the spring of 2024 here, we've hit the upper end of the range. So this range, you can see, fluctuates by about $120,000. This is an extreme fluctuation in valuation for real estate, given that, median sales price, $560,000. That's like a 20% swing top to bottom. But this is not what we value real estate on, these swings. And again, usually it's just a shift of the median. It's not actually a representation of what's going on with real estate values. To really understand what's going on with real estate value, you have to zoom out more. And so for DC, I would argue that the DC market has actually been relatively flat since COVID. It hasn't significantly benefited from people moving there because of some kind of COVID boom, and it hasn't benefited from a COVID reversal, that is, people moving to the higher cost of living areas like California. Now, if I type in something like Tampa, Florida, which was a recipient of the COVID boom, even Cathie Wood ended up moving there. We throw in Tampa, Florida, a recipient of the COVID boom, you can actually see how that COVID boom moved housing valuations in Tampa from a median of about 263 to a consistent pattern of growth to where you actually got from 263 to like the mid fours there for a while, up to 500,000 in June of 2024. And really only since this peak in the June of 2024 have you really started seeing this slowdown in prices again in Tampa. So Tampa's actually been this a steady grower and beneficiary of the COVID boom, if you will. Let's try Austin, Texas, which is a market that I believe slowed down a little sooner than Tampa. Yeah, look at this, much sooner actually than Tampa. Austin is this blue line here. You can see the blue line actually went from a median of 383, peaked out over here in May of 2022, and it actually declined. Texas declined from there, median of 666,000. Oh, the devil's number. Oh, Diablo. 383 to 666, straight down now to let's get that correct here, 666, straight down to about 516. 516 from peak represents a decline of about 23%. So Austin's been in this sort of reversal for much, much longer in terms of declines. And you can see DC is mostly flat in this period. Now, what's an area that's basically gone straight up with no sign of a slowdown yet? Well, it's going to be an area where HouseHack is heavily invested. San Diego. We're heavily invested in San Diego, but you can really look at various different markets as well. You could look at Ventura County as well. And when you look at California, what's so unique about California is that in California, usually people hear Cali and they're like, oh my gosh, fire risk, and this is my bread and butter. This is what I'm good at. You can look at my YouTube channel from 8 years ago. All we do is just real estate videos. We knew that this was likely to happen, and it's why we deployed over, 98% of our capital in California markets. We knew that this was likely to happen because of California politics, and this blows people's mind. But when I had a seminar just this summer, I had a seminar in Vegas. We invited Cathie Wood. She was there. A lot of other folks were there. It was quite enjoyable to have a wonderful event, and everybody got to share their opinions and experiences on the market. But one question that came up during our real estate segment was, Kevin, why is it that you would want to buy in California? In California, you have to deal with all the politicians. And my response was, the benefit of all of the politicians and the politics of California real estate is that they're so slow growth, and they make it so hard to build that they don't actually realize that the politics themselves in California are actually a tool for keeping property values higher. See, the more the extreme politics of California restrict building and make it hard to build in California, the higher your property values go because jobs are in California. California has the Southern California coastline real estate, some of the best climate in the world. So you got jobs, you got climate. Yeah, you've got some other issues, but ironically, the same politics that people hate on are the reason why home values actually just keep going up in Southern California. The liberal policies themselves make it harder to add supply, and they give you a hedge. So think about this. You buy a home in Texas, and then all of a sudden, everybody else is building homes because there's no delay to building homes. The government's not in your way. The value of your home actually goes down because there are plenty of available substitutes. You don't actually have that in California. Kind of fascinating.
But what if they themselves decide to have less restrictions? Or if they want to build, they can turn on the faucet.
So it's something to pay attention to when you're thinking about investing in real estate. First thing that you have to know is we really have to zoom out on the trends. You have to look at a longer term, and ideally you want to get a moving average of the trend here. So Redfin does not allow us to do that here, but if you actually type in Redfin Data Center, you'll be able to. So go Redfin Data Center, and if you grab their housing market data here, you'll be able to get 12 and 4-week moving averages. And this is going to make it a lot easier to understand, is that DC market truly crashing, or is this just sort of like a 3-year flatlining? So we're going to look at DC, and we're going to go to median sales price right here. And here you could see sort of a little bit of a better POV on pricing. So right now, median sales pricing in the DC area, 2025 is the green line. This right here is your year-over-year changes. So look right here at the green line. You'll actually notice that when you look at the year-over-year numbers here on a trend of 4 weeks, home values in DC aren't crashing. They're actually up 2% year-over-year. The same website, Redfin, providing you 2 different sets of data. Why? Well, it's because, look, you had your high sales close in November and your low sales are now closing in December or January. These month-over-month fluctuations are impossible to understand a trend line on. Don't do this in real estate. Real estate is not the stock market. It moves a lot slower. You have to use an average. Go to the 12-week. There you go. On the 12-week moving average, home prices are 3% higher. They're higher than any of these years prior. Now, does that mean that, the layoffs leading to potential sales are wrong? No, not necessarily. I mean, here, unemployment claims in Washington, D.C., you can see they're rising, but they're nowhere near the unemployment claims that we saw in 2022 or during COVID. Those are actually cut off. Probably because if you showed this whole chart, it would be so high that this would look like a joke. This would look like a little fluctuation. Who cares? So this idea that, layoffs are being filed in February of 2025, and therefore home prices are collapsing in DC. Look, that's a popular thing to say. You could get a lot of likes and engagement and tweets and reshares or whatever going, yep, everything's going to crap. Look at that. Real estate's crashing thanks to Elon Musk in Washington, D.C. Look, I've got no real estate in D.C. I don't really care. It doesn't matter. I'm just looking at the data. You can't look at this month-over-month fluctuation because as soon as you turn on the moving average, using the same median sales price stat, you actually do not see the data that you're getting on those monthly fluctuations. So sorry, Kobisi. Maybe y'all just don't know real estate or you're looking for some kind of engagement farming, but this is fully false. The facts don't support what you're saying. Now, in fairness, we do have active listings at the same place, but price drops are higher. Not by much. They're higher than the 2024 year, right? So year over year, they're higher. But you only have 0.4% more price drops on the 12-week. Now, if you go to 4-week, this might be a little bit more extreme. Yep, there you go.
Skog Sherry, 645. Thank you for the follow.
2023. 0.9%
Skog
over 2024.
Sherry.
A little bit over 2023 here. So you're getting a little bit of an increase in price drops here, but you generally do at the beginning of the year. I'm not saying that prices aren't going to go down. I'm not trying to take away that hope from folks. I'm just saying when we look at the data, it's too early to say. that there's any actual meaningful impact that Doge is having on the real estate market. Now, if you look at months of supply, even months of supply is stable, which this is nice. This is a good tool to look at because it actually accounts for how many buyers you have in an active market. Obviously, there are still people buying. And the number of homes sold so far is actually still exceeding 23 and 24, though well below what you saw in 2022. And then new listings are barely above or out of bound of what you saw in 24 and 3. This is on the 4-week moving average. You go to the 12-week, it's almost indistinguishable from the prior years in terms of how many new homes you're seeing come on the market or how many homes are selling. Now, look, are interest rates still really high? Yes. Is it unaffordable to buy? Yes. Would it make sense that some people who get laid off have to end up selling their homes and moving? Yes. But that could just unlock inventory for other people who are moving in to buy. So it's too soon to tell. The best way, if you really want to know what's going on with pricing, is get on the ground. Fly to the area, go to open houses, talk to realtors, understand what's happening on the ground. That is the only way you can know. Sitting behind a computer chair, some kind of desk, I guess you're sitting on a computer chair behind a desk, but anyway, it's not the way to understand the real estate market. So when we at HouseHack were able to time the peak of the Austin real estate market, it was because we were on the ground, not because we're looking at, month over month changes in median sales prices. It's every single month you could have a new headline. Oh my gosh, prices are skyrocketing. Oh my gosh, prices are collapsing. This is the wrong thing to do. It's bad data. It's bad analysis.
Why not advertise these things that you told us here? I feel like nobody else knows about this.
We'll try a little advertising and see how it goes.
Congratulations, man. You have done so much. People love you. People look up to you.
Kevin Paffrath there, financial analyst and YouTuber. Meet Kevin. Always great to get your take.
Tonight, tech billionaire Elon Musk in the Oval Office defending his role in the new administration as an appeals court just rejected the president and Musk's bid to reinstate that funding freeze. President Trump giving Musk the floor to explain the Doge blueprint and his efforts to overhaul the federal government. The admission from Musk over potential for mistakes as his team claims billions of taxpayer dollars have gone to waste without offering any proof.
Joining me now is Kristen Welker from NBC's Meet the Press. Kristen, you have a very timely interview this morning with Ukrainian President Zelensky. It comes after President Trump called both him and Russian President Putin to launch negotiations to end this years-long war in Ukraine. So what did Zelensky tell you about how he views Trump's peace plan?
Well, President Zelensky saying right now he doesn't think there is an actual peace plan. He was also adamant he is not going to accept any deal that is cut without Ukraine at the table. And he warned that Ukraine has intelligence showing, he said that more than 100,000 Russian troops are amassing in Belarus. Putin saying for a training mission, but President Zelensky warning it could be a sign that Putin is eyeing the possibility of going into NATO nations as early as this summer. He also warned the U.S. against pulling out of NATO, saying that could leave all of Europe vulnerable. We're learning this morning that U.S. officials, including the Secretary of State, are traveling to Saudi Arabia in the coming days to meet with Russian officials about a potential peace plan. Ukrainians will not be there. I've confirmed that both with Ukrainians and U.S. officials. One U.S. official telling me that they're going to hold talks with the Russians, then talks with the Ukrainians, and then ultimately they hope everyone together. This is how Ukraine is responding. One top official telling me it's dangerous to speak with enemies before you speak with allies. Ukraine's position remains unchanged. We need to have a joint position of Ukraine, the U.S., and Europe before any negotiations with Putin.
Yeah, Kristen, it's a big interview this morning. A lot of people will be watching that carefully. We also want to talk about tariffs, with the president announcing some new ones this week. We're hearing about possible retaliation. So how will these escalating trade tensions hit everyday Americans?
Well, that is the big question that remains to be seen. History tells us, and quite frankly, economists of all stripes tell us as well, that ultimately consumers bear the brunt of tariffs. Now, look, we are seeing prices tick up. We just got a new inflation report that showed that inflation has ticked up as well. Trump got elected on a promise, in part, to lower prices. He said he would do that on day one. And now we are seeing, quite frankly, the opposite. So to what extent will prices go up? How long will that last? Politically speaking, these new tariffs are very risky. For his part, President Trump saying it's the best way to counter a flow of drugs across the border, illegal immigration. But again, if prices tick up, some consumers could see that as violating one of his key campaign promises. We'll have to see how it all plays out, Dan.
Okay, Kristen, thanks. Always appreciate you taking the time to talk to folks in Atlanta.
Thank
and
you.
Meet the Press airs at 10 right after 11 Alive Weekend Morning News.
No one really cared about the game because of the earth-shattering announcement that had been made moments prior.
You know, we're flying over right now. We're flying over a thing called the Gulf.
I just realized something, chat. I gotta go do something real quick. We'll have to come back. Damn it. Skoggs Harry. I don't know how to pronounce it. Yeah, I have to. Damn, man. I gotta do something. I'm gonna have to come back, chat. Or maybe I can.
Secretary Rubio, my dear friend Marco, it's great to welcome you in Jerusalem with your delegation. It's great to welcome you in Jerusalem as Secretary of State of the United States. I have to say that this visit comes in the wake of a historic visit to Washington. I've said, and I'm going to repeat it again, because it's so true. President Trump is the greatest friend that Israel has ever had in the White House. And the visit in Washington reflected that in every way. And your visit here reflects it in every way. Throughout your political career, you've been a great supporter of Israel and a great champion of the U.S.-Israel alliance. I have no doubt that your unwavering support will continue during your tenure as Secretary of State. And I also have no doubt that you'll be a voice of clarity and courage on the world stage for the values that we in Israel, you in America hold dear, the values of freedom for all those who cherish liberty. You're already doing that, and I want to tell you that it's heard loud and clear here and everywhere else. Today, Secretary Rubio and I had a very productive discussion with our staffs on a number of issues. None of them are more important than Iran. Israel and America stand shoulder to shoulder in countering the threat of Iran. We agreed that the Ayatollahs must not have nuclear weapons. And we also agreed that Iran's aggression in the region has to be rolled back. Over the last 16 months, Israel has dealt a mighty blow to Iran's terror axis. Under the strong leadership of President Trump and with your unflinching support, I have no doubt that we can and will finish the job. We also spoke a great deal about Gaza. I thanked Secretary Rubio for President Trump's assistance in helping us secure the release of another 3 hostages yesterday. These are hostages that Hamas refused to support only a few days to release only a few days earlier. And I also thanked him for America's unequivocal backing for Israel's policy in Gaza in moving forward. I want to assure everyone who's now listening to us, President Trump and I are working in full cooperation and coordination between us. We have a common strategy, and we can't always share the details of this strategy with the public, including when the gates of hell will be opened, as they surely will if all our hostages are not released until the last one of them. Israel is determined to achieve all the war objectives we set after the horrific attack on October 7th, the worst attack on Jews since the Holocaust. We will eliminate Hamas's military capability and its political rule in Gaza. We will bring all our hostages home, and we will ensure that Gaza never again poses a threat to Israel. The unequivocal support of the United States on Gaza will help us achieve these objectives faster and set us on a path for a different future. Secretary Rubio and I discussed President Trump's bold vision for Gaza, for Gaza's future, how we can work together to ensure that that future becomes a reality. We also discussed the situation in Syria after the collapse of Assad's regime, a collapse that was made possible by Israel's weakening of Iran's terror axis, especially the weakening of Hezbollah and the removal of Nasrallah. For over a decade before October 7th, Israel acted to prevent Iran from...
I'm going to come back. I got to do something that's going to take like 10 minutes, all right? Give me like 10 minutes, and I'm going to come back, all right? My bad, man. Some shit. I shouldn't have started stream real quick. But I'll be back in 10 minutes, all right? 10 minutes, be here. Thank y'all for watching. I'll see y'all in a little bit. Actually, no, I'm going to be back. It's going to take like 30 minutes, all right? So I'm going to be back here around 2 to 2:30, all right? 2:30 at the latest. I'll be back. All right, I'll see y'all later. Thank y'all for watching, all right?
New terror fronts.
I'll see y'all in a little bit.
Against us in Syria, right opposite the Golan Heights and deeper in Syria. And we conducted hundreds of airstrikes, perhaps 1,000, in order to prevent it, and we did. Now, if any other force in Syria today believes that Israel will permit other hostile forces to use Syria as a base of operations against us, they are gravely mistaken. Israel will act to prevent any threat from emerging near our border in southwest Syria. The Secretary and I discussed Lebanon as well. Israel is committed to the ceasefire understandings that were reached in November. We expect the government of Lebanon to be equally committed to their fulfillment. The scenes we saw this weekend in Beirut of UNIFIL forces being attacked by Hezbollah, this was not encouraging. The two UN resolutions that everyone refers to, 1559, 1709, 1701, well, they must be fully implemented. Hezbollah must be disarmed. And